Oh man. Okay. Monty, it's you.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Monty, she, her, a modern classrooms expert mentor and a middle school science teacher in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hi, I'm Tony Rose Deanna, and she, her pronouns, a modern classroom program manager and a former middle school English teacher and instructional coach. And I am currently in Olympia, Washington. And this is Keeping Up with Modern Classroom. So just a quick background, Monty and I worked together in DC and implemented the modern classroom model for the 2019-2020 school year. She taught middle school science and I taught middle school English, and we never turned back.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We got a couple of things happening today. First, this is our Thanksgiving special. So you might notice us eating today. We are working on building communities together. So we are sharing, our version of a Thanksgiving meal in our respective homes. My Thanksgiving meal is popcorn. And we are also joined by two very special guests who are not actually guests. They're going to be permanent hosts on the show. So before I talk about our member of the month, let's give them time to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tavia, and you've probably noticed that I'm the one who posts your weekly article for the last few weeks. I have been teaching for 7 years. I've been a mentor with Modern Classroom for about 1.5 years now, and I teach high school science out of Reidsville, North Carolina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Moon. I'm a Facebook moderator as well, along with being a mentor for MCP. I've been doing the question of the week. Thank you to everybody for your engagement on that and all the comments. I am currently in Durham, North Carolina. Tavia and I are only a couple hours away from one another, which is always fun. Right now, I'm in an elementary coaching, interventionist, anything else that this crazy COVID year needs us to be positioned. And I am super excited to be joining the Facebook show.
Yes, and we are super fortunate. We love that Tavia and Sarah Moon, we coined both of her names, have joined us in moderating the Facebook group. Hopefully you've seen their names, hopefully you've seen their engagement, and we're just super excited to have them. So if you are new to the group, we do a member of the month as well as 2 members of the week each week. And we love to shout out our member of the month in our monthly show. And so Desiree Nunez was our member of the month for October. The engagement that we're seeing continues to increase, and we're just so appreciative of your thoughtfulness and the support you provide for other members of the group. And we just really want to make sure you get the shout out that you deserve. And today's show is called Spicing Things Up. So what we've noticed recently is that, I think we're kind of on the part of the year where, year goes kind of in waves. And I think we're kind of on a downward. We're going down the hill right now. And we've noticed that we've gotten a lot of questions about motivation, not only like how you keep yourself motivated, but how do you keep your students motivated. And so we want to really talk about motivation today and ways that we've all done different things to make sure that kiddos are not falling behind and continuing to stay motivated and engaged in your classes. So we're just going to kind of do a round table talk about what we've done. And I'm going to go last. So whoever would like to go first, you're up.
I can start us off. So I think the first thing that's always so important to remember is to give yourself grace when you're in those downward spirals. Like, full transparency, there was one day, it was April of last year, it'd been a rough week, hybrid, all of that. And I told my kids that if they did not speak for the entire period, that they could skip their mastery check at the end. And that was a great source of motivation for them. And it gave Miss Moon a quiet 45 minutes that I just really needed that time. And so I think it's important to give yourself grace with that and remember that, everybody across the world, I'm going to say that, is really experiencing a lot of things this year, right? And November is always a time that we're so close to the holiday break. Oh, we're so close to winter break. Some of you may have been lucky enough to have fall break, and that was so nice. And both us and the kiddos are trying to reach there, right? Trying to reach that overall goal. And I think with motivation, it's important to make sure that we're still kind of connecting to our overall learning goals, right? Like I have found personally with elementary kiddos, like bribery work sometimes. I mean, we're just going to go ahead and put that out there. Sometimes it works, but it doesn't always really lead into that long-term motivation, right? Like I can bribe my kiddos for a class period. I can bribe my kiddos that if they complete their on-pace lessons for the week, we can get ice cream, right? But it's not really leading into that long-term behavior, which is where I think a lot of the flexibility of modern classroom comes in, because I saw just being able to give kiddos that control and that flexibility of like, this is your learning, right? And this is truly your learning. You can kind of choose, we're going to use choose with quotation marks, but you can choose when you're engaging with that learning. Sometimes you might need to take a little break. Maybe you're doing it over here. Maybe you're doing it over here. Maybe you're doing it over here. But I think really releasing that control and giving those kiddos that opportunity to really lead with their learning is a good way to kind of set yourself up for that motivation. Any of our upper secondary folks kind of seen similar things?
Yeah, exactly. House schools are a little different, you know. I call them big elementary school kids because sometimes they can be just as needy and need rewards and bribery and all kinds of things. For them, I have to kind of come at them with a different perspective because biology, that's what I teach. I have to come with them like, you got to have this class to graduate. I understand that you don't care what the parts of the cell are. That's fine. I hated history in high school, but I knew I had to have it to graduate. And after the first quarter, I did see a change in their engagement and motivation when it was coming to the perspective of, oh my God, I didn't do well this first quarter. If I don't do good this quarter, I'm going to fail and have to take this again. So for them, it's been more about they know they have to do it because they have to have that class. So that has changed their motivation. And on our do nows that we do every day, they do have to set a goal, and I can see their goals getting a little more focused. And they kind of like having to set a goal because at the end of class, they do an exit ticket to see if they actually achieve their goal. And sometimes we'll sit down and take the first 10 minutes of the next class and kind of talk about it. Well, you said you didn't get to your goal. Do you know why? Yeah, I was just on my phone a little bit too much yesterday. So today I'm going to try not to be on my phone so much. So we take little baby steps. And sometimes what we're working on is more of their self-awareness, because the learning will come. It will get there, but their self-awareness was so bad. And I guess just from being off for a year, that we've been really focusing on honing in on what is keeping you from doing well, because I know I'm making it, the model makes it simple enough for you to do this. So what is it that you can do to make this work for you? So that's been kind of what we've been doing.
And I think to build off of that, you mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, Monty, go ahead.
No worries. And being the person kind of in the middle, you know, we heard from elementary, we heard from high school. I teach middle school, so I'm kind of in the middle. And I think what I try to always remind myself is that when we have students who are not motivated, or, you know, it feels like such a struggle to get them to do anything, what we really have to remind ourselves is that the kid ultimately wants to do well. Yeah, they might call everything stupid. Yeah, they might say you're stupid, which, you know, middle schoolers. But at the end of the day, they want to do well. And I try to always remind myself of that. And so, you know, if there is something truly hindering them from being able to do it, ask. One of the greatest motivators for my kiddos is really to sit down and be like, what's up? Like, why can't you do this? And sometimes it's, as I had a kid who struggled doing this model in the beginning. And I asked him, I was like, what doesn't work for you? And he was like, the assignments are stupid. That's what he said to my face. And I was like, oh, okay. He was like, it's busy work. And, you know, when I took a step back after, you know, I was butthurt a little bit, it was kind of like, freaking child has the nerve to tell me that my assignments are stupid, that I worked hard on. After I took a step back, it's like, you know what? He's right. It's busy work. And once I changed the assignments, he was like, oh, okay, this is great. It has application. But it took me really, I feel like in this model, sometimes we get so trying to fill the time, and it's like rote memorization on my part of like putting together a lesson, that I need to take a step back and reflect and say, okay, he's right. The lessons actually are not that great right now. And I had to remind myself that I would have never done some of this stuff in a traditional class. So I try to always remind myself, treat it like a real class, treat it same experiences, make sure they're getting, and don't just fill that time. I think the other thing is too, is like, especially with our kids that struggle sometimes, or who might be a little bit harder to get along, find every single great thing they do and praise them. praise goes so far, positive emails home go so far. Even if they've had 8 bad classes in a row, if they have even 25 remote good minutes, send an email home, say, oh my God, little Timmy was so focused today. He did his work. He came in, he got started. And it goes a long way. Once the kid knows that you care, a lot of times they will start to care a little bit more too.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to dive in from an adult perspective, right? Working with adults and being an instructional coach and seeing that, hey, as teachers, we also lose motivation, right? We lose steam, especially during this time. Holidays are coming up. We're really just doing a countdown to just kind of survive and get through it, especially with like, this is our second year amidst like during COVID, right? So still lots of uncertainty, still lots of like, what's going to happen. So one thing that I would really like for you to kind of consider, I mean, Monty said that, you know, her lesson was trash, like it wasn't good. It was back to like what it was traditional wise, right? And that's okay. Like we're going to have trashy lessons sometimes. And I think we as adults need to give ourselves grace that that's okay, right? Like not really honing in and focusing on, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible teacher. And as a teacher, like I get it. Like I used to do that all the time too. Like I would get really overwhelmed and bogged down with like criticisms about what I'm doing in my classroom. And really it's just a way for us to get better. So I understand that like students are low, like the students have low motivation around this time of the year, right? Teachers also have low motivation. So as an instructional coach, we're creating all of this like PD for them. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I have a group of teachers who are just like not motivated because they have so many other things to do. And so me going in there and like not assuming the worst, right? And just kind of establishing that relationship with the teacher, like you would with a student, just to kind of figure out like, hey, what's going on? What can I do to better support you, right? And this is where the classifications come in too, the must do, should do, aspire to do, where you can have a conversation of like, you know what? These are 5 articles that you were supposed to read, but like, you know, really you just need to read like 1 or 2. Or better yet, if the articles don't work for you, here's a podcast. So when you're walking your dog or when you're just going for a walk because you can't stare at the screen anymore, here's a podcast to listen to about the topic or the skill that we're covering for this PD. So everything that you do as a teacher with students, you can also do with adults, the teachers, right? And I told this group that I wasn't going to say anything, but I just wanted to put that one in there for you. Like as teachers, we need to give ourselves grace. Our students are going to have low motivation sometimes because we as adults have low motivation sometimes, right? And so giving ourselves grace, giving our students grace as well is really, really, really important during these times, especially. And I know beginning of the school year, it was really rough for everyone. Every teacher I spoke to was like, I'm drowning. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's just a mess. I don't know if I can do this, right? But today it was like 2 teachers that I talked to and they were like, you know what? The students are getting used to it, right? You just have to be consistent no matter what. And if some things aren't working out for you, change them. That's the beauty of this model too, is that you can make changes so that your students and you are both successful in this model and not necessarily having to like create something or force something that's not working for you.
And I think as well, when we're talking about, you know, this time of the year, like Tony Rose said, like, oh, we're just slowly trying to get there. And I think it can be tough to kind of think about the long haul, because it does seem like it's such a long haul. Like, y'all, I can't believe that it's November, because I was in August thinking, how in the world am I going to do an hour and a half of carpool every day because we're short on bus drivers? How am I going to survive? And now it's down 45 minutes and it's great. Like, but to really focus on those little steps, and that kind of connects to Tavia's do nows, connecting to Monty's like different lessons, really looking at each lesson and connecting to Tony Rose's with the lifting of the classifications, right? Like sometimes a huge source of motivation for both teachers and students can be like, what are we focusing on today, right? And that's where that progress tracker and that pacing guide, whether you're using a game board or a checklist, can be a huge source of motivation because we're just focusing on this today, right? We are focusing on lesson 6A. This is our goal today. Kiddos are going to set that with the do now. The teacher's going to set that goal of like, I'm going to make sure that I talk to every single student today for at least 1 sentence, you know, or I make sure that I check all of the mastery checks that get turned in today. That is my goal today. I'm going to accomplish that goal today. And then we're gonna do it again tomorrow, and we're gonna set a new goal. For some of my kiddos that have historically not done well in class because they've just kind of been pushed through. That was a huge source of empowerment when I did MCP with them, because it was no longer, oh my goodness, I have to do all of this and I'm not getting it and I'm still not going to get it. And of course, being in elementary school, we do sometimes hear teachers, Tavia, connecting to like, they need your class for graduation. I've had teachers be like, well, you need fourth grade math because you're gonna have to take algebra 2 in high school. And like, no, he's 8. I mean, like he is not thinking about algebra 2 in 7 years. Like he's not even thinking about next week. But really being able to focus those kiddos on, like, today, we are adding and subtracting within 1,000 with regrouping. You are going to watch this instructional video, do 3 practice problems, and kind of moving through and really giving that, again, that choice, the must do, should do, and aspire to do, but really making those goals small, concrete, and therefore attainable. And then also just something in terms of spicing it up. I am going to try to say that as much as I can. We're going to do a little spicing it up. The progress tracker is a great way to spice it up. Every now and then on my progress tracker, all of a sudden I would put a ton of Bitmojis or a ton of GIFs, or, oh, it's May and flowers. I put flowers all over one time. That can be a cool little thing to kind of keep it interesting, keep your kiddos focused on it, and just a fun little thing. Like, I have a teacher this year, she does different timers according to what season. So like right now they're using a whole bunch of like fall timers on YouTube, and like, the leaves are falling out, but the kiddos get so excited when they see a new timer. They'll be like, oh my God, it's the scarecrow one. And it's like, oh, okay, like it's a 5-minute timer, but those little bits of joy can really help that motivation because it's connecting with kiddos, right? And it's just kind of making it a little bit different, a little bit spicier.
And I think too, one of the questions that we get a lot of, and this goes into the theme of spicing things up, is, my class seems so boring. How do I add the fun back into it? Like, I think we actually had a question very recently about adding the fun back. And my comment is normally pretty much the same every time I see one of these comments, is do what you've always done. So this model isn't meant that you're like completely taking away every single thing like that you've ever done. Like, find a way to bring those things back. So for example, I teach science, and we know labs are super important. I know Tavia can probably, highlight this as well as a science teacher, but like, labs are important. And one of the biggest questions I get when I mentor teachers is, well, how do I do labs in this model? Everybody's at a different pace. I think what I like to tell people is, first, we just got to think about things creatively. If you know it's a lab where they don't need a lot of management, put the materials out for X amount of days, let them do the lab. Then after a certain amount of days, put them away. If it's a larger lab where it's lots of moving pieces, pause the class, have everybody do it. Some might be further than that, some might be behind, and it could just serve as really great discussion for students, and you compare them based on where they are. And some kids could say, hey, I already did this, I know kind of what this is. And some kids could be like, wow, this is really exciting, because they know nothing about it. But I think you just have to add the creative spin to it. And the other thing I really like to do is, discussions. And I like to spend the first 5 to 7 minutes of class, like doing a whole level kind of like warm up. And just because I do modern classroom and they're at different paces does not mean that I eliminate that out of my class. That discussion is super important to me. So I make sure that it's built into my class every day, regardless of if they are at different paces. I just make sure I design them to reflect, like, either you already know this and I want you to talk about this, or you don't know this yet, what do you think? But it really is all about creative thinking, which I know, again, coming out of a pandemic, still kind of being in a pandemic, dealing with all this stuff, I know sometimes it's harder for us to think a little bit creatively. But if you have the time and the capacity, just add that creative thought. And I promise you'll be able to implement some of that fun back into your classroom.
Yeah, that's just funny. I'm so glad that you said that about, it's not just you can still keep yourself in the classroom, because I like to talk to my kids. And that was part of when I first started out, I was like, so you mean I can't get up and say stupid things and make crazy analogies and stuff like that? So, but when I tell all my mentees, I tell them that think of modern classroom kind of like as a skeleton. That's just the backbone. You have to add the meat, you have to add the skin, you have to make it your own. You have to make it work for you. I don't talk to my kids every day for a large amount of time, as far as like up in front of a whole group, but 2 or 3 times a week, we go over stuff and talk about stuff, and we may play a game. We may do some kind of team activity. We may do a lab. And the kind of what you were saying with labs, I've done a couple of different things this year. Like maybe I'll introduce a unit with a lab. So then we can, as they're going through lessons and we're discussing, we can always relate it back to the lab. Okay, guys, so you remember when this happened. So now you can see how this works or why this works this way. Now you understand, like we just finished osmosis and diffusion. And we did osmosis in the egg, which they always think is really cool because you strip the egg of its shell and then you put it in the syrup and it deflates, and then we put it in water and it blows back up. Yes, it blows 16 and 17.
Remember that experiment?
Yes, it blows their mind every time. It never fails, no matter what level, honors, regular, IB, they all love it. Like, never thought an egg could bring so much excitement to a child's life. And we kind of relate as we go through the unit, we relate it back to that lab. Okay, so remember, this is what happened during passive transport. This was a hypertonic solution. So all the water came out of my egg, and that's why it was all deflated. So you do have to kind of find a way to make it a little more interesting, to break that monotony of thinking, oh, all I got to do is watch a video. Then I'm going to do an assignment. Then I'm going to do a mastery check. So I'm all for it. And sometimes we do have to kind of differentiate it a little bit, because Johnny just ain't feeling this should do today. So Johnny, just don't do the should do. Just look, listen, just take the notes and watch the video and just listen to me when we go over it. And usually they do fine. And kids are very amazed at how well they do when they get to the mastery check. They're like, oh, I got 4 out of 5 right. That's good. That's an 80. That's excellent. Like, these are kids who's not used to seeing these type of grades. So for me, that's winning. So.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was back in the classroom too, I noticed that my students were getting a little bit tired, right? Like the video fatigue. And so have fun with your videos. This was something that I did as well, was that I used Edpuzzle. So I was able to incorporate like notes in the Edpuzzle of just like, okay, now stand up on your chair. This is how I know that you're in this part of the video, right? Or like, go to Miss D and whisper something in her ear, like a phrase. And of course it'd come up and they'd giggle like, oh my gosh, this is so, why? This is dumb, right? But it would be like, oh, Miss Deanna is great. Like, you have to say it so that I know, okay, this is the part of the video that you're in. So it allows for students to move and also just take a brain break, right? Of just like, okay, let me walk over there, whisper this silly thing to my teacher, and then go back, and then they now feel rejuvenated so that they can finish the rest of the video. So kind of keeping your students on, on their toes, and it's not even like part of the video, right? It's just like the notes part of it. And then, you could be silly with it, right? Like, bring your personality in the video. Like Tavia was saying, she loves to talk. I also love to talk. So sometimes if I'm like, oh, I have time for like this quick story, then I'll include that in my video, right? Or like if I make a mistake, I giggle, like, it's just, be yourself in the videos, and the students will truly get more engaged with the content, just because like you're being so silly, but also like serious enough to where like, oh, we're focusing on this, but also like life happens. Here's my dog who's barking in the background and won't like leave me alone, right? So have fun with your videos. It doesn't have to be all like formal or professional or anything, right? Like I talk a lot with my hands, so my students see me talk a lot with my hands. Another thing too is like you can break that self-pacing up, right? For example, my students knew that we could play Kahoot any day. They had to be prepared. It was just a way for them to check for understanding, to make sure they're all on the same page. So for example, if I'm teaching a novel and they were supposed to read chapter 32 last night, right? So the first thing they do when they come in is we're going to play a Kahoot, and it's not going to be a gotcha moment, but it's just a way to basically put everyone on the same page. So my questions were basically asking what that chapter was about. So the students who knew it, and then the students who didn't learned it. Right? So it was just a great way for us all to be on the same page. And it wasn't to penalize anyone, right? It was just a way to just be like, you're not going to go straight to your computer like and do your independent work and your instructional video. No, we're actually going to do this together. My students also love Quizlet. So if you're doing vocabulary, like they love that game, and anything like Pictionary, you can break it up. You can just be like, you know what, let's take a break today. And let's do this quick game about vocabulary words or whatever it may be, something hands-on. I had Play-Doh in the classroom, so my students were creating visual representation of what we're reading. So it's just, you can literally break it up. You don't have to stick with the video, the lesson mastery check every single day, because it does get tiring, right? Like as adults, we also get bored. So a little bit of a surprise here and then kind of like perks us up. And then we get distracted, like, oh, this is really cool. And then you are excited to go back to what you were doing. So don't be afraid to, just get creative with it.
And something really low prep that I've done in the past to motivate students is I would hide code words and stuff. So not only in my videos, but I would sometimes make them a little bit of a scavenger hunt. And my students were really bad about reading directions, especially once they thought they knew what Modern Classroom was. It's like, oh, I don't need to read Miss Woodard's directions. I'm like, oh, okay, sure you don't. I started hiding code words. So I would put maybe one code word in the video, and then in the video, I would tell them where to go find the other code word, or I would put one code word in, like, I don't know, the directions for something, and then put it on like a different I don't know, like the wall or something somewhere to make them get up out of their seat. And it was normally like 2 phrases. It was like, I don't know, my favorite one was like chicken pot pie. I don't know. It's like always one that I do. It's like chicken pot pie or like funky chicken, like really weird stuff. But it's very low prep on your part, but it really gets the kids interested. And then they're like always reading directions to the point where when you forget to put the code word, they're like, I read all the directions, Miss Woodard, and there was no code word there. I'm like, oh, I forgot, so super low prep. You could also do it even if you don't want to use words. Get an object. Like for the month of November, for example, I have a rubber duck. I give kids rubber ducks. I don't know, it's weird, they like them. And we had a ghost rubber duck, and I hid him every day. But the kids didn't know where he was hidden, and I would tell them if they like did XYZ. So like a little mini scavenger hunt, very low prep for me. I just had to put them in a new spot every single day. But again, it was a way to have kids interested. The first thing they walk in, they're like, is Casper hidden? I'm like, yes, Casper is hidden today. And when I didn't hide them, they definitely let me know that I had failed at my job. So.
Well, and I think the instructional videos are typically the thing that kind of gets people stuck, because there's I don't want to say a stigma, but there's definitely like, I think everybody's gone through like, okay, this is going to be seen by a lot of people. Okay, I'm recording myself. And I've told mentees, I actually had this conversation the other day with a mentee. I think a lot of us kind of sometimes slip into like a Bob Ross sort of video. And we've all done it before. We're like, okay, everyone. Hello, scholars. Today we're going to be learning about osmosis. Please make sure you have your guide. Like, we've all done it. And then when you watch yourself or you hear yourself, like, that's not how I speak at all. And I had actually talked to this mentee, shout out, because he is doing wonderful things. But I was like, I don't know you that well, but this seemed a little Bob Rossy to me. You don't strike me as that. He's like, oh my God, it was totally Bob Ross. Like, as soon as I listened back, I heard it. And so I think feeling that, that freedom to do whatever you want during your instructional videos. Like, none of us are probably going to become YouTube stars. I always told my kids, like and subscribe. Would love to become a YouTube star, and I've heard they make a lot of money. I was pretty cool last year because, y'all, not to brag, I had 46 subscribers last year. 46 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and they were just my students and my students' moms that just got notified each time a new unit went up. But like, nobody else is watching this video except your kiddos, unless some of you are YouTube stars. And then like, hit us up because we need some of that sponsorship money. We'd love to go ahead and market on your platform. Like, we want everybody to know about MCP, but like, nobody else is watching this except your kiddos, and your kiddos want you. Your kiddos want your genuine you. Like Tony Rose said, like, my dogs bark all the time in the back of my videos. I'm always like, oh, Bella's reminding you, please use your strategy. Bella's saying, did you do your guided notes? Like, you can be as fun and as spontaneous as you typically would be in your videos. And I also tell mentees, like, you actually can, because the intercom's not going off and somebody's not knocking on your door and a kid's not getting dismissed for dismissal. And, oh yeah, that kid that like wasn't here, like, there's none of that. Like, you get to literally do your lesson. And with that being said, because it's that lesson, because it's that direct instruction, you can have also the freedom to do a Kahoot day, we had trails behind my last school. Every now and then I'd be like, guess what, guys, we're going for a hike because I can't stand it in here anymore. And like, we would just go for 20 minutes, and we were actually able to, because I knew with the pacing, with how our unit was paced, that my kiddos could still get all of that instruction, all of that exposure to the standards that they needed, while we could still have really fun things. And it wasn't like, oh my God, we can't go outside because the state tests are coming up and we have to do this, and the district says this. Like, instead it was like, you know what, y'all, everybody's on pace, we're doing pretty good, let's take 20 minutes to play a game. Or, you know, we would do, they loved the drawing videos on YouTube. They are a YouTube star, like the how to draw. every now and then it'd be like, you know what, guys, last 10 minutes, we're going to all learn how to draw whatever. It was typically anime, and I don't know anything about it because I'm not cool. That's why I'm not a YouTube star. But like, this very long tangent, like and subscribe my channel. That's the first thing I want everybody to remember. And the second thing is like, you can
Sarah
totally
Moon?
be,
Sarah Moon?
I think so. I don't even know. Like it's through my district. I don't even know if other people can see it. Still, we're just going to speak it into existence. YouTube star. This is my big debut. Maybe this is how I become a YouTube star. But you can really make that instructional video whatever you want, just like you can make a whole group lesson whatever you want. Like there can really be a lot of freedom. And I think sometimes when we get in front of the camera, we're like, oh my God, like we're being recorded, all of that. And it doesn't have to be that. You can do super cool stuff and your students will really enjoy it too.
Thank you. Yes, perfect. So as we begin to conclude our meeting, we want to each go around and say something that we're grateful for, because it is Thanksgiving, and not that we should be only grateful at Thanksgiving, but I feel like November is the month where, we talk about what we're grateful for. If you know Tony Rose, she does a I'm grateful for post every day, and it gives me life. So maybe in the new year, I'll make a resolution that I'll be more grateful for things. But I think what I'm grateful for the most is the community that, has rallied around me. And not only just like in personal life, but like work life, even this lovely group of ladies right here that I'm on the call with. I just think the community, you're just always grateful for people that support you, because we definitely all need that.
For me, I'm super grateful for this team and just our Facebook group in general. Everyone has been so great at sharing all their lows, all their highs, all the celebrations, all the challenges and everything, right? Asking all the questions and then just supporting one another. I mean, like looking through all the posts, like there's 5 to 12 to 34 comments. Like there was no need for the moderators to even get involved because our community in this group has just been so amazing. So I'm forever like grateful and appreciative of all of this. We wouldn't have an MCP family without all of you. And another thing too is that Tavia and Sarah, like Monty and I are so grateful that you are part of our team. And thank you for being patient, because I was definitely a hot mess before recording the show. So I'm just really grateful for you 3 women who are just rock stars and for making my day just 10 times better. So I appreciate you.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm grateful for everyone in the group. Grateful for Monty and Tony Rose for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this group. Being part of that article, putting that article up every week and actually seeing people respond, even if it's 1 or 2, it just makes my day, because it makes me feel like even if I'm not reaching everybody, somebody is at least appreciating something that's put out there. And just because they don't necessarily post, that doesn't mean they didn't necessarily read it. So I've just been grateful for the opportunity and grateful to meet such great people along the way.
Yes to everything, lifting up of everything. And also just to bring us all the way home, I am just so incredibly grateful for MCP. And I know others have expressed in Facebook as well. Like I came to Modern Classrooms Project when we were low in teaching, when Ms. Min was looking at like, maybe I'll get an MBA, maybe I'll become a real estate agent. Like, I don't know how to make my dream of being a public educator work for me in a sustainable way. And then MCP came, and like MCP is the reason that I am still in public education. And I am so grateful for that. And I know that there are lots of teachers around the world that are probably in similar situations. And not only that, but there are tons of students that are benefiting so very much every single day because of all of the work that MCP is putting in.
Yes, in my Bob Ross voice, yes. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. This was such a great video to make, and we're just super appreciative of everybody. That is all we have for today. Again, thank you so much.
Monty, that is not all we have today. We have our next steps that you are forgetting about, and that is
next steps. I forgot, my bad. So it's been a long day. Work was actually easy today, but yes, next steps. We do a Twitter chat every month based on our topic of the month, and we will be talking about spicing it up and, gratefulness as we go into our Twitter chat next in a few weeks. So that is there, and now that is it. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and as Miss Frizzle says from the Magic School Bus, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. See you all next month. Sarah and Tavia, we are so excited that you're part of this show, and we're just going to continue rocking it. Thank you, everyone.